Welcome to the 5th edition of the Inside Show. Today we have with us a very special guest, Prof Gadre, who is a senior faculty member at the Department of Electrical Engineering. He is also the faculty coordinator of the Institute Student Mentor Program, and he is also on the faculty advisory committee of the National Service Scheme, where Professor K. Narayan is the faculty coordinator. Professor Gadre, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
We would like to start with a very basic question. Professor Gadre is here today with us to explain what are the various avenues where students can contribute to social service and how it can be helpful to a student. Professor, we would like to start with the first question. How are the different avenues of social service helpful for a student?
You know, if you look at it, the avenues and the opportunities for social service are probably much more rich and much more varied than any other activity in the institute. And I remember once this was actually mentioned in one of the events of the National Service Scheme, where you said, you know, the amount of opportunity that you have for social service or for doing something for others is so vast, is so diverse, so rich that you don't need to go very far. For example, you could start with the hostel. You of course start, and most of us do this, we do some small things for our peers, right? We help our peers. All that begins, social service begins there, it begins at home. When you do something small and positive for the mess workers, when you do something small and positive for the hostel organization, in a genuinely positive sense, in a sense of service, there is social service there. Go a little farther for the institute, when you take up responsibility and fulfill it properly, which is meant to enhance the welfare of others, not just personal welfare, there is an element of service there. Go even farther, the neighborhood around the campus, the activities of the National Service Scheme, the activities of service organizations around. Education, there's a tremendous opportunity for education, education of the underprivileged society around in the campus, communities in the city, for those of us who have access to the city. There's no dearth of opportunity if one looks for it really.
What are the official channels for getting involved into social service from students' perspective? We would like to know more about that.
Well, the primary organization, if you may want to call it that, is the National Service Scheme. So in fact, the whole idea of having the National Service Scheme as a part of the academic program in the institute is to introduce that element to the student community. Now, you see, the National Service Scheme is, of course, a part of the formal academic curriculum. So there is an option available to the first year student to choose between the NSO, the National Sports Organization, the National Service Scheme, National Cadet Corps, NCC and NSO, NSS. Now we do have a large number of students taking up NSS as well. But the NSS, you see, NS101 or NS102 is at that point of time taken more as an academic requirement, and of course people learn a lot from it. But when I was the NSS coordinator a few years ago, and even now when we continue to be in the whole body that looks at NSS, we feel that it's very important that the activities of the NSS should be ingrained in the activity of the student community, and there has to be a little difference between the way this happens and the way in which other organizations or other activities function. You see, something that you do for another person doesn't have to be decoupled or does not have to be exclusive, and does not exclude you from doing things for your own personal growth. And that's why when we were thinking about how to introduce this dimension into the activities of the student community, we came up with this concept of Unnati some years ago. Now the word Unnati literally means progress. And when we talk about progress, we had all agreed in the Faculty Advisory Committee that progress is simultaneously personal and social. Right? So there's a close link. When we contribute towards the growth of others, when we contribute towards the rise of another person, we also grow personally. So it's very closely related. I mean, to give an analogy, if we think of all of ourselves as waves in a larger ocean, no wave is separate from the ocean. So what one wave does, contributes to another, positive or negative. Right? So our growth, our personal advancement is greatly enhanced, is facilitated by what we do for another person. If we just understand this concept, then a lot of other things follow. It is that way. I mean, we are a part of a bigger consciousness, and we had discussed this point when we tried to give it a structure. We agreed that Unnati should be very different from any other organization. It shouldn't be an organization. It should be a consciousness. So for example, a person taking part in cultural activities could contribute to Unnati. For example, he could be doing something that which raises the awareness of a social evil, or which takes steps towards the correction of a social problem, right? Through drama or through poetry, or somebody who is good at organizing events might contribute to the organization of an event under this umbrella. So we had agreed that Unnati should be a consciousness, not a body. It should be a consciousness in the student community which entices, which encourages the student to add this dimension to his or her life in addition to personal growth, never in contrast or in exclusion to personal growth. Right? That was the concept of Unnati, and we hope that we always look forward to its growing as a consciousness, never as a body. It's never a body, it's a consciousness. I've talked about the NSS and Unnati in principle, and I do hope that this should progress in the future. But avenues, as I said, are many and varied. And one doesn't really have to formalize an avenue. A very simple thing can be social service. All of us know that the mess workers work hard to prepare food. Sometimes they are frustrated. Sometimes we are frustrated at the food they prepare. Sometimes they are frustrated that we have to prepare the same food. Just go and, praise what you liked in the food one day in front of a mess worker and see the reaction. An example of social service. It doesn't have to be very complicated. You see a batchmate in pain. Very often, we tend to ignore those in pain. See what you can do for him or her. An example of social service. I'm giving such simple examples that don't need too much of effort, right? But there are bigger ones. For example, there are several activities of the National Service Scheme. And by the way, I must mention, it is well accepted even in the academic framework of the institute that people can contribute to the National Service Scheme and its extension consciousness Unnati even after the first year, and there are ways of appreciating it. So a person could be appreciated for his or her contributions officially also beyond the first year. That should be well known. It's well documented also in the rules. Now, I personally think that in one's student life, the primary duty of course is education and learning. So there's no doubt on that. But, it's not as if we study for 24 hours in a day. And it's not even that we are terribly busy in any specific other extracurricular or co-curricular activity all the 24 hours of the day other than what we spend for studies. Very often if we look carefully at the way we spend time, we do, while away some of our time non-constructively. If we can only pay attention and be aware of some of that time and see, initially it just requires a desire to give, and the opportunities come. I've seldom known a person in this institute who has desired to do something positive and who has not found an opportunity. And the beauty is the opportunities have been as innovative as a number of people who have sought them.